1. Self-awareness. I believe that most people have a seriously crooked opinion about themselves. You're probably a totally different person than you think you are. But why is that? First, as Charles Duhigg explained in his book The Power of Habit, almost half of your actions are based on your habits. Round about 40%-45% of your actions aren't consciously executed by you. Your habits execute them. While habits are at work, your brain shows roughly the same activity as well as sleep. This means that almost half of the time you are somewhat sleep-wandering and letting your habits decide about your life. Sounds pretty scary, right? But habits are not a bad thing. We'll dive a little deeper into that later. Second, some of you will already have heard about something called the self-confirmation bias or the Dunning-Kruger effect. For those of you who don't know what these effects are, here's a short explanation. Self-confirmation bias. You tend to manipulate new information to fit your current belief. Taking conspiracy theories as an example, if someone tells you that the rich are not killing children and drinking their blood, they are a part of the conspiracy because they try to hide the fact that the rich drink children's blood. Yes, this example is a little extreme, but it shows exactly what the self-confirmation bias does. Dunning-Kruger effect. People who know only a bit about a certain topic tend to think they know a lot. If they continue learning about the topic, there will come a point where they realize they only know a fraction of what there is to know. But if people stop learning and remain only having small knowledge, they stay at this point where they believe to know everything. Neither I nor you are immune to this. I know that it's easy to say, well, that wouldn't happen to me, but as soon as you think or say that it already happened, you think that you're immune, but the self-confirmation bias comes in and tells you that you're right. It's easier to manipulate reality than to realize we're wrong and change our own perspectives. Be aware of yourself. Be aware that you're not immune to making mistakes, that you're not immune to overestimating yourself, and that half of the time you're not even making decisions. Your habits are. 2. Time. I didn't want to repeat myself too much on the topic of time, attention, and progress. These topics are important as well, and if you're interested in these topics, just read my last post. The concept of time is tricking you into thinking that you have a lot, and because there is that much, you're easily able to waste a lot of time again without it really mattering. If you believe this, you might be wrong. Time enables us to think a lot about the future while letting the present slide. Most of us tend to almost live in the future. When I'm X years old, I can do Y. I have to wait for X to happen until Y. Over X years, I'll have a wife, husband, maybe even children, and everything will be fine. Thinking like this isn't bad in general. In fact, it can be really motivating and inspiring to think about where you want to be someday. However, don't make the mistake of letting the present slide. Every day you have access to a fresh, new set of 24 hours. You'll have to spend some of that time on regenerating yourself and restoring your energy. If you cut off 10 hours every day for sleep and eating, you're still left with 14 hours a day. Yes, some of your work is 9-5, and have to spend an additional hour on your way to work and back home. Yes, some of you will be parents and have to take care of your kids. Yes, some of you will have some responsibilities towards yourself or others, and that's fine. You most certainly won't work 14 hours a day or have to keep an eye on your kids all day long. If you're able to watch YouTube or TikTok, binge Netflix, play a video game, or any other form of cheap dopamine, you have access to some spare time. When having spare time, you're responsible for how you spend it. These are some of the options you have. Bad ways. Overflowing your brain with dopamine. You'll feel good at first but much worse afterward. This means overconsumption of social media and video games. Feeling productive while being unproductive. This ranges from consuming, for example, motivational and crafty content to procrastinating on real tasks by doing irrelevant ones. You'll feel like you've done something, but you haven't. Okay, ways. Starting to learn something and dropping it after a couple of days or weeks. You'll learn at least something but won't develop and master a skill. You're better off if you stick to something and develop that skill over a longer period of time, but starting and stopping are better than doing nothing at all. Consuming informative content. This way you, again, learn at least something, which automatically makes this better than simply wasting time by spending it on the mentioned bad ways. Good ways. Spending time with people you love. Spending time with friends and family benefits you in the short and long run. In the short run, it's positive dopamine. In the long run, your social skills will improve and you'll achieve deeper connections with these people. Doing things that you have to do. Doing these things can be hard at first, but the relief you'll feel after completing these tasks feels great. And overcoming the next anxiety about a task gets easier every time, greater than you'll grow as a person. Great ways. Disabling any form of distraction and entering a flow state for deep work or deep learning. This way you'll be able to learn and comprehend a lot of new information which will benefit you for the rest of your life. Improving yourself as a person. When you improve yourself as a person, it's like giving your life an upgrade. Improving only one thing about yourself will improve many aspects of your life. Choosing a combination of good and great ways of spending time will make you feel way better about yourself and improve your life a lot. 3 habits. For this chapter, I'll describe tasks, routines, etc. as actions. Habits control us almost half the time of our lives. They make doing things easier by lowering the inhibition threshold of actions. Repeating an action trains our brain to complete this action. Therefore, it becomes easier. Therefore, it becomes less terrifying. Therefore, the inhibition threshold will be lower. Therefore, it's easier to do this action until our brain is trained enough to execute this action on autopilot. A habit is born. The process of creating habits isn't that hard. The downside of this is that habits can form without us knowing. This is how most bad habits are born. Dopamine tells your brain to go back where you got it and get it again. This causes repetition of scrolling through social media or playing video games. Repetition will form the habit of wasting time on social media and video games. Being aware of how habits work will transform your life. Habits don't just trigger by random. Habits are connected to a cue and a reward. The reward usually is dopamine. The cue could be that your phone beeps. The following action is that you check your phone. And the reward is a small dopamine boost because someone showed interest in you and sent you a message. The cue could be that you've got 5 minutes of spare time. The following action is that you check your Instagram. And the reward is seeing that some people liked your most recent photo. The cue could be that it's 4 a.m., which means it's snack time. The following action is you walking into the kitchen and grabbing a snack. And the reward is, again, dopamine for eating sugary, salty, or fatty food. You can replace habits by replacing the action that usually follows a cue. The 4 a.m. cookie action could be replaced by reading a book for 30 minutes. You'll first have to do this consciously. And at first, it might be hard because your brain isn't used to this yet. After a while, however, you'll successfully transform this bad habit into a good one. An action of one habit cycle can be the cue for another habit cycle, meaning that getting on your phone after it beeps because of a message can be the cue to open Instagram. Opening and scrolling through Instagram can be the cue to watching YouTube. Watching YouTube can be the cue to watching Netflix, which again can be the cue for something else. Be aware of these cue action chains. Make conscious use of habits and automate important actions. 4. Dopamine. Your dopamine is part of an enormous industry. Have you ever noticed that you've never been charged money to make use of social media, while other services do charge you? Have you ever wondered why there are so many free-to-play games? And have you ever wondered how without charging you directly those companies make millions if not billions of dollars? They sell your attention. Yes, you already know this, but you're probably not aware of this. Well, what is the difference? You'll see in a moment. Notifications, comments, followers, and of course likes have one thing in common. They give you a feeling of social approval which releases dopamine. Based on evolution, we're used to receiving approval from a small group of people, not hundreds or even thousands. Receiving this much approval releases a huge wave of dopamine. This makes social media work like a drug. You post more photos of yourself, you'll collect more followers, you'll receive more likes, and therefore more and more dopamine. When suddenly those likes start to drop, you'll feel bad and very self-conscious. Video games do the same thing. They simulate lots of emotions like fear, success, anger, or the feeling of being some legend who slays tons of enemies. These feelings are not real, but some of them release dopamine. Dopamine is a very well-working method used by many different industries and to get you hooked and make you spend as much time as possible using their products. When they have your attention, they are either going after your money with microtransactions and premium options, selling your attention and time to advertisers, or doing both simultaneously. It's up to you if you want to trade your time for cheap dopamine that won't last for long to help companies make tons of money at your cost. If you don't want to do this anymore, start spending your time on something else, something you've been thinking about doing for a while. Maybe you want to improve some skills, learn something new, or get something done. 5. Flow state. The flow state is some magical state of pure concentration, except it's not magical at all. Even if you have something like ADHD, which makes it hard for you to focus, you will be able to reach a flow state. Here is what you must do to enter a flow state. Remove all sources of distraction. Set your phone to silent and don't put it next to your workplace. If you're working, studying with a PC, close all windows and tabs that are not related to what you should be doing. The only thing that should be available is the resources you need to work or study. Remove the sense of time. By removing all kinds of clocks, you'll start losing track of time. Keeping constant track of time is like an antidote to the flow state. The flow state is a state where you lose track of time and completely dive into whatever you're doing. Disable your taskbar clock on your PC and cover or take down clocks in your room. If your time is limited, just set an alarm reminder. Just start. Starting is the only thing you can do now. Just start and you're very likely to enter a flow state. I recommend taking at least 60 minutes of time for this. 90 minutes is my personal sweet spot. Just to give you an example, I've been able to focus completely on writing this post and I haven't gotten up from my desk once. I'm currently at 2.300 words and just started my 5th word page. This is what a flow state can do. Additional help. If you want to eat or drink something while being in a flow state, get it ready before you want to enter your flow state. If you want to listen to music, don't listen to music with lyrics because this will drag attention from your brain. Listen to music like lo-fi hip-hop. If you're making use of a reminder, alarm, don't look at how much time is left. This is like looking at the clock. Benefits of a flow state. Working concentrated leads to better results. You're spending more time on whatever you want to do. This means that you'll make more progress toward your goals. You'll train your brain to focus on things again. Because you cancel out any distractions, you're building resistance to distractions. 6. Improving your identity. Improving the methods you make use of can be helpful, but they only help so much. When you make changes to your identity, you'll get much more benefits. By changing your identity, you're changing the way you think. The way you think determines the way you act. The way you act determines the quality of your results. If you only improve the methods, you're only improving the way you act but not the way you think. There will be no harmony between your thoughts and actions, which will cause inner conflicts. That's not what you want. Changing your identity means changing yourself as a person. You can rephrase current wishes to make them relate to you as a person. Here are some examples. I need to be more productive. Otherwise, I won't be able to finish my essay on time. This is a very vague statement. Everyone wants to be more productive. It's also mainly focused on the outcome of finishing the essay on time. Let's rephrase this. I have to change my personal preferences to spend more time in a useful and meaningful way. This targets your preferences, thus the way you spend your time. Changing this will not only lead to you finishing that essay on time, but also keeping up with any other task that you might face one day. Always look for what you have to change about yourself, about your identity, personality, in order to achieve the things you want. Conclusion. You've shown great interest in improving yourself and actually doing something about yourself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it this far. I really hope that this sets something inside you in motion. I hope that reading this might be the push you needed to get started. I say this in almost every post, but do not overdo it. Slow, consecutive steps are the key to great transformation. Don't rush into this, trying to build a new life within a week. This might take you years, maybe even decades, but it's worth it.